Alright everyone, how's it going? Back again for another One Piece chapter review. Very excited for this one, having already read through it. My goodness, I don't know how Oda keeps doing it. It is incredible how he can almost just blindside us with a lot of things. But this chapter, this arc, just keeps getting better and better. So, chapter 1072, The Weight of Memories. Very cool title. But we continue with the cold-blooded voyage. Mass-producing deadly weapons. Quite ironic, seeing as Mads started out as peaceful and being pacifists. And we have a shot of Caesar creating an artificial devil fruit that we know are the smiles. We see Queen designing or creating the viruses that we then saw in Wano. And we see Judge developing some form of technology for what looks to be a spear. Now, we saw him use spears during Whole Cake when he had his fight with Sanji. But then obviously we know he went into the cloning side of science. So whether he started out as a weapons manufacturer, built what he wanted, but then decided to change to cloning when they cracked the system of how to create a successful clone. But to note, something that surprises me in this cover story is Caesar. Now, as much as they're also in their younger years, Caesar presents himself with a cloud around his shoulders and back. Oddly reminiscent to what we've seen in Gear 5 and Yamato's clouds for awakening devil fruits. Is this Oda's way of telling us that Caesar had awakened his devil fruit? Because obviously, it could also be stated because it's the gas fruit. We know he's got a Logia, that it could just be some excess gas that he's putting on. But it's a little too similar to what we have seen in the awakened forms, or awakened forms to come. But interesting that Caesar's got it around him this early on, because obviously we saw him a lot later on in Punk Hazards with more devil fruits and obviously his gas fruit Logia. I'm interested to know whether this is confirming his awakening. Pretty cool if it would be. So this chapter kicks off with a lovely shot of Egghead. We can see the Frontier Dome, and we've got like that cloud system that presents the number 100 again. So this must be some signifier to the defense system, because we saw it obviously went down and the numbers were increasing over chapters, and now up to 100 again. But we have a lovely little interlude just briefly from Vegapunk himself, some notes. And it's him describing that the world won't accept her, or might not accept her, but this is a girl is unmistakably human. It's a success, what they've done. And that this achievement is one step closer, a huge step, in fact, he says, to world peace. And he is the chief of Mads, Laboratory of Peace, but we know that clearly from the cover page, Mads doesn't continue to be of peace. But hey, if it's how they want to brand themselves, I guess it's where they get their money from. But we still carry on, going further into Egghead, and we see poor little child Bonney crying on the floor, saying she's broken something and she's gotten really upset. And oh no, the poor child, Vegapunk, peeks his head round, and the caring man in him doesn't want to see her upset, wants to come and look after her, shouts for medics, thinking she's injured, and all of a sudden springs into Bonney's trap, and we see Bonney inflate her entire body, just all her muscles swell and bloat, and we get a named move of Bonney's distorted future. So her entire body all just enlarged, and she swings this pipe. Luckily, Vegapunk, being the small man he is, nimbly dodged out the way, but she creates a massive crack in the side of the wall, but relentlessly keeps pursuing. So as Vegapunk is scurrying off, Bonney doesn't give him a second and uses another technique called timely thrust and spears Vegapunk in the back with the pipe and activates her devil fruit through the connection of this attack, which is incredible to see. So whether this is Bonney's awakening, I'm not sure, but certainly very different to how we've seen Bonney use her ability previously. The last time on a bigger scale was obviously in Sabaody when she was first introduced. We saw her just do it on all of the Marines. They turned out to elderly or to kids. She's used it on Luffy a few times, but this immediate connection and Vegapunk's stomach explodes into jewels and trinkets and stars and all these different things, like almost like a video game just exploding of stuff. And Bonney pins him to the floor, and even he's saying, "Oh, like all these doodads are a manifestation of my golden years, and I'm just a helpless child now. Can I have my golden years back?" And she picks him up and saying, "Don't worry, as you know probably, my powers don't last long on living things." So already confirmation that she can use it on inanimate objects with a permanent effect. But when she does this to a living person, living creature, the effects don't last long. We don't know the exact time frame. However, we know that eventually, without Bonney's aid or effect again, that Vegapunk will turn back to how he was initially. So, keeping him as a hostage, she's saying, "Right, I want you to tell me what the hell you did to my father. What happened? Just start talking." We have this lovely sort of, how can I explain, back and forward now between Bonney's interrogation of Vegapunk and sort of spliced with Kuma back at the Red Port. So as Vegapunk is crying out saying, I can't tell you, we've got Kuma just not really caring about many people and is Spider-Man climbing up the red line. Just, yeah, don't know what he's still trying to achieve, but continuing up, and we see all the people in the town are saying he's climbing the red line, there's no way he'll make it to the top, and Vegapunk is saying, "I can't divulge the reason why, it would only hurt you more. That I promised Kuma that I would keep it a secret from you, no matter what." But Bonney, being in such a rage, is saying, "You can't tell me why you had to kill my dad. Do I look like I was born yesterday? I'm not taking this. You are going to tell me." No, and poor Vegapunk is still trying to explain, "Look, no one made this decision for him. Only Kuma chose this path." And Bonney's still in a rage, just saying, "Why would my dad choose to die and abandon me? Why would he abandon his child?" So Bonney's clearly thinking that Vegapunk is just trying to come up with any old excuse. But we do get to see that poor Vegapunk is still dealing with this fact. It still hurts him that not only does he have to keep it a secret, but it had to happen the way it did as well, because he has a lot of respect for Kuma. He says he's an incredible man. I would call him a close friend. But he explains, "You've got to understand, I can't say anything more." And we get a shot of Marines bombarding Kuma, firing at him on the wall, and we've got another shot of Bonney throwing down Vegapunk in his child form. Child abuse, as Vegapunk rightly points out. But there's a little noise, a siren, off in the distance, and maybe this is Bonney's observation, Aki kicking in, but she sort of gets like a twitch and turns, and Vegapunk's like, wait, no, there's definitely nothing over there relating to Kuma, I can promise you. And then we see a door with Kuma's paw print on it, and Bonney's like, yeah, well, obviously a lie. So Bonney's trying the door handle and sees it's locked, and we get to see her use her ability on inanimate objects. She just shatters the lock itself, and it breaks down, door swings open, and we see a lovely big ball from Kuma's Devil Fruit ability still hovering there, very reminiscent to what is probably one of my favourite scenes of One Piece, what we had seen back in Thriller Bark, when nothing happened, but we see this giant ball that Bonney definitely is aware of and knows, and as Vegapunk crawls in, he is reminded, or we get a flashback to when he was sat with Kuma. So Kuma in this flashback is still human, might be some cybernetics, but mostly human. And they're talking about memories and saying that out in the West Blue, there was a scientist that postulated that a person loses 21 grams of mass upon death. And Vegapunk says that this quite fascinatingly proves that the soul does in fact exist. So he is continuing doing all his maths and scientific equations on the board, and he talks about how Kuma's power can take something intangible like pain, which we've seen, and give it a physical form. So not only that, but he can transfer it to others. Again, let's talk about Zoro being the absolute legend he is, because what a scene that was. But he's saying that a total wireless transmission of nervous signals. Pain is just pain receptors, the nerves feeling the pain. And that concept of pain, Kuma can extract and give it to someone else to feel. So it's not so hard to extrapolate that what other systems, what other signals can he do it with if logic can be applied. So he's saying, what about memories? Memories are just signals in the brain of how we remember things. Can Kuma extract memories? Probably. Your imagination. If Luffy's Gear 5th is based on his imagination and the limitations of what he can think up, is it so hard to maybe think that Kuma could withdraw that imagination, which would either he could take away all ideas, so Luffy's Gear 5th wouldn't work as well or be as effective, or maybe vice versa, he can give Luffy inspiration and give him some other things to do. That would be so cool to see, especially if we know that, as we can see, he can take memories and give memories now. So what we're seeing potentially is a big ball of Kuma's memories before he then became fully cybernetic. But we do see Kuma's response before we cut back, and he was saying that it's far too personal to delve into my memories. And Vegapunk is begging him. He's like, for science, please. We can do this. No one else would see them. Cut back to Vegapunk screaming at Bonney not to touch it and saying, you're familiar with Kuma's powers. There's nothing but pain there. It's more than enough to kill a man. to kill somebody. Don't touch it. And then we jump back to Kuma being shot down off the wall by a marine squadron. Loads of explosion. And Bonney very stoically is saying that I know my father's powers, my father's abilities all too well. That Vegapunk doesn't need to explain it. And we see Kuma landing on the ground and in just full defensive mode, sort of stood hands out, just firing off the lasers that we know he's got. And we see that Bonney resolutely acknowledges that these are Kuma's memories. So whether there's something different to how this ball looks, the paw, than how we've seen it, or it's still the same colour, but she just knows that there's something about this one that is tied to his memories. We can see Bonney reaching out to touch it, and there's sort of a moment from Kuma, like looking up, and there's a noise, and whether it's just him in the battle acknowledging something, or it's him acknowledging what Bonney's witnessing. But back over to the Labo stratum, unfortunately we don't know if Bonney does touch it, and we can see Nami, Shaka, Usopp and Sanji all discussing Rob Lucci and the other CP0 agent getting into the lab and saying that the systems malfunctioned, but Shaka's apologising. But we've got Usopp saying Zoro and Brook are back on the ship. They stayed, luckily, but there's no way that they'd lose, even against a 3-on-2 type situation that they're in. And Shaka has to go and spoil the fun and say, wait, you gotta look at this again. And we get a shot of CP0 turning around to see the 4 Seraphim appeared there. And we go on to see that it's now a 2 against 7. And they're up against the best of the best. And Shaka actually informs us that CP0 didn't order this. This was not a direct order. They wouldn't have knowingly brought the Seraphim up here. That actually the Seraphim can assess combat situations themselves. They're equipped with some limited decision-making capabilities of their own. So they've capitalized themselves, Sanji's saying, on the barrier going down. And they made the decision to join. And we actually do see Rob Lucci confirm we didn't order this. It's not like we can make them go back down now. Stussy's saying the operation, the barrier's back up. So they've currently got the Seraphim up here. And that's when they get the idea, well, you know what? This is a miscalculation on CP0's part. Because now we're higher up in the hierarchy of authority for Seraphim. So all we need to do is get there and give them the order and turn them back onto our side. So already Edison is rocketing off saying, I'm going to hold the orders and then we'll become a huge threat. And Lilith is skipping behind saying, right, well, I'm coming with you too, because we know her stance on wanting to go to war. And Shaka's like, right, we can leave it to them too. But we get an incredible moment where Sanji, of all times for Oda to drop something like this, says, well, you know what? Moss said if he would croak, then you know what? Right when the One Piece is in sight. Just casually right now, just Sanji just mentions the One Piece. Just saying, oh, no, that's fine. If he falls, he doesn't get to see the One Piece. It's his fault. Like, hello? But we do get a good comical joke of Nami giving him the order saying, look, this is a threat to all of us. And Sanji, in true Sanji fashion, is like, Namishwan, running off saying her orders are absolute. And they make some sort of connection to him, like a mirror film. And Frankie is joining Sandy, so Frankie's getting into the fray, saying that swirl of him for his eyebrows. So they're making jokes about Sanji now being Seraphim. Am I only just making the connection now because we know that Sanji has some cybernetics in him? That this is Oda's way of saying he's similarly built? like the Seraphim? Surely not. Because it's, I mean, guess we'll find out. So we come over to Brooke and Zoro talking, and Brooke saying, "What the devil is this person meant to be?" And Zoro saying, "I think he's a giraffe, if I remember, but he looks a bit different. But it's not going to matter anyway because he's going to end up a dice corpse either way," which is a pretty cold line. But we've got Kaku charging forward, and Zoro says, "Brooke to look after the ship," and Zoro takes on the attack. And Kaku does this nose gun attack, this giraffe man gyro, where he whirls his head as like a corkscrew and charges forward and spins, and we see the black flame clouds around Kaku as well now. So the difference in appearance is Kaku has awakened. Having only had his devil fruit for 2 years, Kaku has somehow gone the transformation of awakening. And not only that, has retained, like Rob Lucci, his sense of person. He's not lost himself. So we still haven't figured out how awakening happens, but we know now it's not for a length of period of time because Kaku has done it within 2 years, which is pretty impressive actually, considering Rob Lucci had his devil fruit for so long, then had the 2 years of training, and now we see him with his awakening. Similar to Luffy. Luffy had his for years, but Kaku has somehow within 2 years gained the ability of awakening his devil fruit. But taking this attack, Zoro absolutely tired of all this, saying, "I've had enough of these zigzagging attacks back in Wano. I'm not having it again." And sort of gives Kaku the slam down and smashes him into the ground. And Rob Lucci begins barking orders at the Seraphim to begin firing, destroy everything, destroy the lab. And we get the panic immediately before all hell breaks loose and the Seraphim start firing. And we got Usopp and Nami crying that they're just under fire. And Kaku's almost impressed, saying, "Oh, well, doing the job for us. This is some lovely bit of razzle dazzle," before bump, he gets bitten, and he has enough time to react before his head hits the ground. And Lucci looks over, shocked that he's just fallen, and we see Stussy stood next to him, having just bitten into Kaku. And we see Stussy in a very different form than she has presented. She now has vampiric bat wings, wiping her lips, saying, "Me? What am I doing? Well, I'm just putting him to sleep. Lucci, I think it's time for your cat nap too. You can join him." And a new title card for Stussy appears. Clone of Miss Buckingham, Stussy of the Rocks Pirates. Stussy's a clone. Mads' first successful clone, Unit 1, Stussy. There's a whole lot to unpack here. So Stussy wasn't one of the scientists, unless she did become, but she's a clone, the first clone, of a character we've seen prior in Miss Buckingham, or Weevil's mother, Edward Newgate's son. This woman, well, now that we have confirmation, she was a part of the Rocks crew during the time at Whitebeard. Says that she had a son, which is Weevil, but that somehow the government have created a clone of her, and she was the first successful clone. And now she has the power of a vampire. I mean, what? Does this mean she's a vampire as well? Because we know that the clones can have the devil fruit abilities of their user, or are given devil fruit abilities based on their combat prowess. So either she's a vampire or has the devil fruit ability of a vampire, and Stussy now as a clone was given the devil fruit. I don't want to wait another week. I need to know. Oh. Well, that about wraps up this chapter. I'm looking forward to next week. We don't have a break, which is great, but please let me know what you think. I'm interested to know now, is Stussy playing some double agent type game? Is she a lot more powerful? We didn't know much about her, so is she holding back now, or we don't know what game she's playing? But I'm certainly interested to see where this is going. Well, I'll see you next time.